Varsity is a magazine, website, and media company dedicated to Husker athletics. And when I say media, you now have radio, podcast. We have a ton of different ways for you to get everything you want about Huskers, and now we have a beer.
Collaborations are not a new thing in the beer world. I mean, brewery to brewery, it's a big deal. Like state to state, country to country, even two Nebraska breweries. Some of the ones that we have had the most fun with are collaborating with non-beer companies because they bring a whole new set of kind of how we market this beer, and we get some ideas from this group that doesn't get into the beer bubble, right? Like, I feel like the world revolves around craft beer, but folks at Hail Varsity may not exactly think that, you know? So they're looking at it from the outside in, which I love, and we get a whole fresh perspective and a new perspective, so.
You know, speaking for myself personally, I am a big advocate of supporting local. I think, especially now more than ever, if you can support local, it goes a long, long way. And I know, speaking for Hail Varsity, we're big supporters of local companies as well. We have been supported by local companies since our founding. We would not be here without the support of the Lincoln community, the Nebraska community, for a small business and what they're doing, and also then hopefully, you know, introduce Hail Varsity to people who may or may not have been familiar with us at the same time. It really is just a win for all.
There's a lot of attention to detail for both Kinkaider and Hail Varsity, with a high focus on style, care, and art. I think the fans of both brands really expect a higher level of quality out of the product.
You know, Gorman and I have been friends for, 10, 15 years.
We both went to UNK out in Kearney. He was in the music scene, and so I knew him from those days.
I actually went to a Husker game and I got really good seats, and it was down on the base of the field, and I see Chris Gorman running by out on the field. I knocked on the fence or whatever. I said, "Hey man."
And he snagged me and said, "Hey, I have a brewery in town. First beer's on me. Here's my card."
He reached out to me, and we started kind of stewing about this idea of doing a beer with Hail Varsity.
So I've seen Kinkaider collaborate with other brands before, and started thinking about what it might look like for a Hail Varsity Kinkaider collaboration. And so I texted Cody and I said, "Hey, how hard is it to make a beer?" And he said, "Not that hard."
You know, when we first set out on this beer journey, one of the things that was super important to Dan was to have somebody come and sit at one of our pubs that had 12 handles, 16 handles, 18 handles, and they could try the whole gamut of these beers. And each beer has their own profile, it has their own story, it has their own flavor, it has their own feel. And that was something that's really important, because there's a ton of breweries out there across the country that, even though they brew great beer, they kind of all taste the same. If you sit at one of our pubs, you're gonna get a ton of unique flavors. We really take it a challenge, our bartender crew takes it a challenge to find the beer that's best for each person. When we first got in, there was maybe a little bit of a pretentiousness that came along with craft beer, and we feel like there's no room for that. And Kinkaider has done a very good job in the state of pulling pretentiousness out of beer, because, I mean, what can be pretentious about you sitting across from another person with a beer in your hand, right? Like, that's supposed to bring us together.
We asked Cody and Kinkaider to make what we thought would be the perfect game day beer.
When we were developing Hail Ale, we had a few things in mind. One was on game days, people usually don't just have one, right? They want to have a few of them. So we wanted to make sure the ABV was right. So we got it in that 4% range on ABV. We also needed something that was like super crisp, super refreshing too. So when we started toying around with this, I think we went through 4 variations of this beer before we landed on the final one. And it really just comes down to those 4 basic ingredients: malted barley, yeast, hops, and water. And water is the main ingredient in beer. We feel like we do have an edge on that because we dug a well right out there in the Sandhills. We're pulling up Ogallala Aquifer water, and it's something that Danny has been brewing with for years, so he understands the profile.
Hail Ale is just a really easy drinking beer. I'm a huge Kinkaider fan. They have such a great variety. This is one that's really an easy entry point to any beer that you're going to have at Kinkaider. It's something that you can drink very easily on game day. So be careful because you can drink a lot of it because of how easy it is to drink. It also tastes really light and fresh, which is sometimes hard to explain in a beer without just trying it yourself, but that's the best way I would say it. It tastes like game day.
When we first released this beer, it was only available in keg form to a few select locations. This time, Hail Ale is going into cans, and you're gonna be able to pick it up at all the Hy-Vees in Lincoln and Omaha, various liquor stores, and in every Kinkaider location across the state. Cans are really cool. They're really gonna pop when you see them on the shelf. The branding couldn't be any better.
Our artists did a fantastic job at meshing these two worlds of Hail Varsity and Kinkaider Brewing together to make this one kind of cohesive label that has continuity on both brands.
I wouldn't be surprised if these end up on your bookshelf. That's definitely where I'm putting my first 6-pack.